Yo, GM, Buckazoids, and everybody else who's paying attention. My name is Guy Malone. I'm going to say hello, good morning. Thank you, Nick and Sid, Bitcoin Live, for getting us going here for you. On screen, you'll see my new friend. We've been on screen several times on phone. I've been the subject of some talkings to from this guy and others in the Buckazoids community. What is a Buckazoid? We will get into that extremely
Yeah.
shortly. Hey, Matt, so wonderful to see you here already. Just give
Thank
a
you.
hey, Matt. We've yet to meet face to face, but we're about to in Las Vegas, coming up on the
Yes.
1 year anniversary of something we're both involved with. Those that saw me last week with Sid and Nick, uh, without going into my history again, it was a 2 hour interview. They liked me as a guest so much enough that they asked me if I would consider being a host, and I would love to. I've done it before in the past. Here from Roswell, District 59 in the state of New Mexico. I live in Roswell, which is also nicknamed the birthplace of the modern rocket. Why that's hilariously interesting, we will uncover very briefly shortly. But in the last 18 months, let's go back 3, 4 years. I have copy edited for Bitcoin Magazine, as in like the proofreader, uh, typo guy. For 18 months, I did that freelance for them. And then for the most recent 18 months or so, I was with the Roswell Daily Record, local newspaper here where I live, that in 1947 has the distinction of publishing the headline of the UFO crash in Roswell that most of you listeners will have heard of. But as their copy editor, I parlayed that position, that favor, into a column in the Sunday paper where I began teaching no coiners, gray-haired newspaper subscribers, about Bitcoin. It was literally the world's first, according to all the AIs that were, of course, telling me just what I wanted to hear. But it was literally the world's first and only dedicated newsprint column to educating the public on Bitcoin. Very recently, or last summer, around after being the annoying Bitcoin guy week in and week out for a newspaper, something semi supernatural happened to me in the summer of this year. A few different things, a series of events, and at the request of half the city who was tired of seeing Bitcoin in their newspaper, I started writing about supernatural faith related matters and published together. Now I have the demo of 21 Sundays of Bitcoin columns that the programming here, Bitcoin Live, is helping me get to the world. This is how I convinced Roswell, New Mexico, you might say, to sign into law the world's first municipal strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've received donations, and it was signed by our city attorney, now our city manager, Hess Intima, and also signed into a receipt for a donation was signed by our mayor pro tem. So welcome to the inaugural program, other than being a guest a couple weeks ago, of Finance Meets Faith, where I will be sharing topics based on the fact that I earned. It's an online test you can take. Certified Bitcoin Professional. It's a title that ultimately sounds kind of fiat, but I just wanted a piece of paper 5 years ago, so I passed the test with a nonprofit. And then also, I'm in Roswell as a missionary related to the UFO topic. That's a whole nother interview. That's a whole nother topic. But I've been here in Roswell since 1999, minus 5 years. And so I'm also soon locally publishing a hardback 21 Sundays of supernatural biblical faith columns that I wrote for the paper. That's the intro to what the program will be. I will constantly be bouncing back and forth between matters of Bitcoin. I've LARPed as a Bitcoin maximalist for a while when I worked with Bitcoin Magazine and back when we were all simping on Swan for a job. Those of you who know, if you know, you know. In the course, finally, bringing on Matt and to really just break in this inaugural episode with a bang, with a whiz bang, yippee ki is in the course of writing a column for the newspaper about Bitcoin. I landed a press pass at last year's Bitcoin conference in we're going to say 2025, where I ran into a group that had a table there called the Buckazoids. They were representing, and as a Bitcoin maximalist, almost. Like I said, I LARPed as a Bitcoin maximalist. I still own a couple of alts, but I'm down to like 90% Bitcoin. And now I have a fairly significant holding. Not financial advice, it's only fun money. but just to disclose that I have a vested interest in this. I also, um, as a newspaper columnist with certifications in Bitcoin, I heard this story out. I met a community that blew my mind. The rabbit hole I've been following since last summer. I still don't know everything there is to know, but you will find out from Matt right now why this is called the origin of Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies. Matt, just say hi. We'll read your bio maybe, or let you just jump in and respond and say hello to the guests.
Hello, everybody. Matt Blum here, based in Chicago, heart of the Midwest. Been here my whole life. Probably last 6 years that I've been in crypto, and I started mining helium, no less. That got me hooked because I would convert helium into Solana. Got the Solana bug, which got me into Ethereum, which got me into Bitcoin, and then over a year ago, or just under a year ago, I learned about Buckazoids, and I'm a big time historian. So I like
Hmm.
to research wherever I'm investing my money. And Buckazoids pulled me in directions I never thought I'd be pulled in. And we'll get into that, right? Where there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that we have that leads us to believe that the origins of Bitcoin can be found 17 years prior to Satoshi's white paper. So, and we can get into the many,
Wow.
many circumstantial pieces of evidence that we have. That if it weren't for, let's be honest, if it weren't for the different AI engines, and it's not just myself, but there are people like Guy, and there are many, many dozens of people in our community that have spent, in 12 more days, it'll be our 1 year anniversary. What's it? So in 12 days, it'll be Buckazoid's 1 year anniversary. So you're looking at many, many thousands of hours that the Buckazoids community has invested in Claude, Anthropic's Claude AI, Meta AI, ChatGPT. Did I say Gemini? Perplexity AI. I mean, there are about 8 different AI engines that we will duplicate, triplicate, quadruplet, verifying the evidence. Because the other thing is that I tell people that try to poke holes in our story is garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So AI is only as good as the training models that are used, and you have to provide evidence for it to provide accurate information. Sometimes, if you just tell it what you want, it needs verifiable evidence, and the internet keeps receipts, and that is what we provided. So there are many times it was questioning the data I fed it, and then it was asking for verifiable evidence where I had to give them, go to this show at this minute of the show and look at this, and then it confirmed that yes, it was wrong and we were right. So
Yeah.
we'll get into all that, but I do want to ensure that people understand that this is not us making this information up. This has been verified by 7 different AI engines, and asking the same question multiple ways and providing it verifiable receipts from the internet to confirm whether it's true or whether it's false.
When he says receipts, what I want to mention is screenshots is a good thing we do. We're all Telegram kind of in the course of being a reply guy and teaching the history of Buckazoids. I regularly post now as a community member tweets that have, if you're a Bitcoin OG, you know these names: Max Kaiser, Adam Back, and a screenshot of a confession of Hal Finney being involved with his Buckazoids. Buckazoids is an in-game digital currency that was in a game called Space Quest that came out in 1986. There were several iterations, like starring Roger Wilco, who was the hero, but he was a janitor. He was just the janitor, not a captain. There you go. And they would travel through time, and the whole game was an intentional riff on all the sci-fi memes, Star Trek, Star Wars, everything. It was a dunk on science fiction community itself for fun. It was a self-aware, making fun of itself series of video games. The early video gamers in the niche California area, Silicon Valley, you got to imagine it's a community of a handful of dozens of what Bitcoiners will call cypherpunks, who developed
Yeah.
an in-game currency that required no exchanges. When I met these guys at the Bitcoin conference, the thumbnail here that hooks you in is that a Redditor, a few March or May, March, posted he was playing an old video game, Space Quest, and he did a screenshot with a gold coin with a B with 2 slashes through it that suddenly looked exactly like a Bitcoin logo. Let's just cut to the chase. And he said, "Hey, what's a Bitcoin logo doing in my 1991 was the screenshot video game?" And people looked into, whoa, that does look like this is a remake. It's not the highly digitized video game version, but they did some research. The gaming community, the geeks were like, whoa, wait, what? Who made this game? Oh, Sierra Gaming. This is what I uncovered as a Roswell Daily Record columnist, not a real reporter, just an opinionated dude. And affiliated with Sierra Games, names not officially listed on Space Quest, but a picture the size of this community in the 80s. Geeks inventing video games and overlapping with digital currency, you're going to find out. 2 of the people that affiliated with the Buckazoid, with Space Quest and Buckazoids game company, Sierra, was Satoshi Iwasaka, thank you, and Rodney Nakamoto. Now, when Matt was discussing this, what we find out is that there's a community of people that were we call them cypherpunks now. There is enough overlay to build a preponderance of evidence, as any AI will tell you. There's no smoking gun. There's some OGs that apparently were involved that don't want to be found anymore. That's how OG they are. And Matt, you're an angry cyber hornet going after them, aren't you, buddy?
Yes. Yeah. So let me piggyback on what Guy said. So let's start. Let's get into this. So again, I learn about Buckazoids was launched using Pump Fund on the Solana network, which much to the hatred of real Bitcoiners, Bitcoin maxis, Bitcoin purists, they would have loved for us to pick anything other than Solana. So it was March. So let's back it up. So March 26th, there is a Reddit post by a person that says, "Hey, look what I found in a game from 1991, Space Quest 4, Roger Wilco and the Time Rippers." And so they're seeing this pixelated coin and they're like, "Wow, doesn't that B look like the iconic Bitcoin B logo?" And there are people that say, "Oh, that's the Thai bot," if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Okay, let's be honest. The Thai bot, the lines go straight through the coin. It's only one, or straight through the letter, what looks like a B. It's only one line, it's not 2. Yes, this is a little bit narrow on the top, a little bit bulbous on the bottom for the B, but essentially, this is very, very iconically similar to what eventually in 2010 becomes the Bitcoin B, because even Bitcoin, it was BC, before it became B, and then it becomes B, where BitBoy decides to turn it to orange and turn the B on a 14-degree tilt, which we'll get into that. But that was the genesis, pun intended, how Buckazoids came to be. That Reddit post happens on March 26th. Look what I found in a game, Space Quest 4, which was 1991, and someone launched the Buckazoids token on Pump Fund on March 27th, which ironically happens to be the birth date of, oh my God, just having a mental blank, of Ross. Yeah, Ross Ulbricht, sorry. Yeah, so Ross Ulbricht's birthday is March 27th. That was the start of last year's Bitcoin conference. But yes, thank you. So there was the evolution of what now became the Bitcoin B back in 2010. But in 1991, look at that B. So now let's say to ourselves, so the coin gets launched. Whoever was the dev, they left the project within a couple of weeks. The Buckazoids token ballooned to almost 10 million market cap within a few weeks of launching. And now we're settled down. We're around 400,000 market cap. So it's a steal for anybody who, wants to take, I wouldn't call it a risk. I would consider it, a bargain basement price. But anyways, so now,
can I throw in something?
not financial advice. It's just, I can tell you, I've paid.
A note I wrote earlier about us being on Solana is that Nobody involved with the Buckazoids currently. Maxis criticize us for this. As soon as they look into it, you're a shit coin. Oh, you're a coin on Solana. Is nobody involved? You, me, and you're a day oneer almost.
Yeah.
Nobody involved with the project today made that decision. We play in the hand we were dealt. And I just feel that's an important thing to be said to the Bitcoin community that we
Yeah.
may one day, you know what I pitch. I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to get back to that. And also, you had a couple questions that you had sent me for you to bounce off of earlier, but I just
Yeah.
had to get it out.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I
We
would
didn't
just tell
choose the
people in all transparency, trust me, I'm nowhere near an entry point of a 400,000 market cap. So anybody getting in now is in a much better position than I was. But again, not financial advice. But now you get the team of people that make up Buckazoids, and in 12 days we'll have our 1 year anniversary. But now let's get into what Guy had mentioned, and this probably gets into one of the questions. But the reason people started getting interested in understanding maybe there's something here with Buckazoids, when you look at the B, there's a rocket. Well, yes, it is a space game, so okay, the rocket kind of makes sense. But then there's the number 59. Well,
Mm.
what, like, 59 is a very strange number. Why not a whole number like, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, right? But it's 59. So I'm going to blow some things out of the water here. Why we think 59 has such significance, but I'm also going to be transparent and honest throughout this whole session to give you the what could be the truth, but what sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. But I think fiction here is going to play a big role. So you start off each game in Space Quest 4. That was it came out in 1991, and from 1991 to 1992 is when this coin was seen. So this gets really wild, and we're gonna have to backtrack. So let's go back. Guy was right. The game was started in 1986. So the first Space Quest 1 was started in 1986. It went as long as to 1995. But only in Space Quest 4 was this pixelated coin with the Buckazoids B. I'm gonna say Buckazoids B, not Bitcoin B. The Buckazoids B came
Oh,
out in 1991 and 1992. It wasn't seen before and it wasn't seen after in the inventory of the game. So now let's go back to 1959. Anybody that knows anything about Seer Online, the developers of Space Quest, there were two men that were the people that were they were Space Quest, and that was the two guys from Andromeda. So Mark Crow and Scott Murphy. They're known as the two guys from Andromeda. They were the brains behind Space Quest. Now, Mark Crow's birthday is 1959. He was born in 1959. So the story goes they were trying to figure out what do you start the game with for inventory. And somebody just said, oh, I'll just use the year of my birthday, right? So they picked 59. Okay, we can go with that story because we've tried to find out is that true? Is that false? But even though we say that this Bitcoin B appeared in 1991, 17 years before the white paper, the people, yes, thank you, the people we're talking to, it's been almost 35 years. So they don't remember why
oh,
they
it's
made decisions.
hearsay.
Wait, say
Almost.
it again, Guy.
Almost hearsay or
Yeah, yeah,
half
yeah.
remembered.
Like a lot of people, it's not that they don't even want to talk to us. Like it comes down to they don't even remember because I'll get emails from people or DM saying, "Yeah, we don't want to talk about it. I can't remember what I ate for lunch last week." So, but anyway, so 59 is you start every game with 59 Buckazoids. However, 59 has a ton of symbolism in cryptography. And that's where now we're going to wrap in Satoshi Usaka, Rod Nakamoto. Okay. Because of the name, right? You combine their name and what do we have, right? So the name of course is Satoshi Nakamoto if you combine Satoshi Usaka and Rod Nakamoto. But we'll get to that. Let's go back to the 59. Mark Crow's born in 1959. But there is significance in that number 59, which now starts to have is this divine intervention? I'm not going to get religious, right? But is this divine intervention how 59 came to be? So 59 is a prime number in cryptography, number one. Number two, in numerology, if you add 5 plus 9, that's 14. Bitcoin's difficulty, when you mine Bitcoin, the difficulty changes every 14 days or 2016 blocks. Okay. So now we got 14 when you add 5 and 9. Now we're going to do it again. 5 and 9 is 14. They tilted the B 14 degrees. Okay. So now we're okay. Now there's some more. So
In the
now
logo,
if you go,
the
say
Bitcoin
that again,
logo,
Guy.
the Bitcoin logo, you're saying?
Yes, the Bitcoin logo is tilted 14 degrees.
Happen
Yes,
to have one
correct.
here.
Yep. So now if you go 5 minus 9, that's 4. What happens every 4 years? The Bitcoin halving. Okay, so we're sticking with this 59, and that's why I'm saying sometimes it's his birthday, but now we're talking divine intervention because they said they didn't know what to start with. They're like, oh, just pick his birthday. So 5 minus 9 is 4, Bitcoin halving every 4 years. 59 is an atomic number. Now, this is a space game, but 59 is the atomic number for praseodymium. You have to look it up, but basically, it's a rare earth magnetic element that is used for two purposes: rocket propulsion and in low cryogenic temperatures. Okay, we're going to get into Hal Finney is a part of this, and Hal Finney is now in cryostasis, being frozen cryogenically. So those are just, I don't, there's so many more things I can go into with 59, but it'll go down too many rabbit holes and people's eyes are going to roll in the back of their head. But I just wanted to start out. Guy, go ahead.
I'm going to go with one just to remind people from the top of the program. Matt, you were there when some of these revelations hit me. I live in the state of New Mexico, which is divided into 90-something districts. After becoming a Buckazoid and going home and beginning to dig into the rabbit hole or fall down the rabbit hole, copy editing at the Roswell Daily Record, I discovered that I lived where? Do you remember?
I don't.
In New Mexico District 59.
Oh.
Which is also unofficially nicknamed one of two places in the world that holds the nickname birthplace of the modern rocket. It is where we have a museum here called the Goddard Museum, where Robert Goddard invented or perfected the liquid fuel. You just said 59 cryogenic liquid fuel.
Yeah.
Robert Goddard perfected the liquid fuel rocket propulsion. We have a big old museum here. The high school here is called Goddard High School. The team is the Goddard Rockets, in addition to the
Awesome.
Roswell Coyotes, to give equal time. I, however, identify as a wolf. That's a different story. But so when it hit me that after coming home and being life impacted changes, manic changes, we all have the story of divine intervention, why we're in this community.
Yeah.
We did it once as a podcast ages ago. Finally found a home, Lonely in Families Psalm. But before you seg back to what you said, Hal Finney is cryogenically frozen, is in cold storage, is another way of saying it.
Yep.
Which is a good seg for you to you gave me some questions. I think you're going to continue just unpacking. I just wanted to throw out that the divine overlay, if you're going to bring up not religion, is that this Buckazoid logo. I am a Bitcoin columnist in the birthplace of a rocket, and a Bitcoin columnist in a place that signed the world's first municipal strategic reserve, the birthplace of the modern rocket in New Mexico District 59. So top that, Matt.
Back to and then in 1959, the Luna 2 crash landed on the moon. So in the year 1959. So again, this is a rocket game, or this is a game about rocket and time traveling. But again, another just divine intervention that Luna 2 crashes on the moon in the year 1959. But now let's get back to the whole Rod Nakamoto, Satoshi Usaka. So, and again, just like I told you about the number 59, that Mark Crow his birth date is 1959. Now we're going to get into the truth and the transparency of Rod Nakamoto and Satoshi Usaka, and why when you combine those names. But we're going to give you some truth serum, but then we're going to add a little fiction in there and let you decide. So So both of these people were involved at Sierra Online. So Rodney Nakamoto, he was involved way before even 1991. So Rodney Nakamoto founded a company called Sweet Microsystems. Sweet Microsystems released a game card called Mockingbird. So it was a sound card, and that was back in 1983. Okay. And in 1983, he was selling those Mockingbird sound cards to Sierra Online and also Atari and Apple II. So more than just Sierra Online. So you got Apple II and Atari. So now you have Rodney Nakamoto starting out with Sierra Online almost 8 years prior, selling sound cards. But then he and his wife, they also then founded in 1984 a company called Interactive Design. And this was a game development studio, right? Where they were helping companies develop games. And who did they help develop games for? Sierra Online. And later Electronic Arts, and later Activision. So anybody current in the gaming world knows those two companies as well. So what had happened is, he started out selling the Mockingbird sound cards, but he was involved. But remember, I told you the two guys from Andromeda, they were really the creators of Space Quest. However, Rod Nakamoto was around, right? Like he worked for Sierra Online, he helped them. So our point of view is his name was known within the four walls of Sierra Online as well as outside, because the gaming community is it's very incestuous, especially when all these people came out of it in California, in Silicon Valley, of which we'll get into Hal Finney, who the first thing he did out of college was work in the gaming world. So now you have Rod Nakamoto selling Mockingbird sound cards, then comes out with him and his wife Interactive Design. So they founded Interactive Design, which is a software development house for gaming. Now let's fast forward a little bit to Satoshi Usaka. So Satoshi Usaka never stepped foot in the US, but he's a gaming person from Japan. So Satoshi Usaka worked for Game Arts in Japan. And some of his top games that he developed, right, for Game Arts were some of the very games that Sierra Online resold here in the US. And one of the things that they had to do was use the Mockingbird sound card, right, to transition it in order to be able to be played in Atari and other games, even Tandy computers, which we're going to get into that one, right, at a later date. So all we're saying is you have the name Ron Nakamoto, who was involved at Sierra Online selling sound cards as a game developer, helping companies, right, develop games. And then you have Satoshi Usaka, never stepped foot, in the US, but came from Japan. And many of the games, just so I don't forget, were Thexter, Slipheed, Firehawk. And Slipheed was the big one that Sierra Online resold here in the US. Okay. So it stands to reason that their names were involved within the four walls. They had to interact with each other. And whoever Satoshi is, okay, whoever Satoshi Nakamoto is, we're kind of thinking he was a gamer, right? Like he was very interested in games, and he might have either been involved in some form or fashion, just kind of knew the industry, because there's many you can go to many different sites and find out who gets gaming credits, for
Yeah.
different things that people have done. So we think that Satoshi Nakamoto is somehow involved in gaming, or just played the games and knew the players. And when I say knew the players, like the players behind the game, the developers. Okay. So now we have that settled as to why we think there's been some involvement. And now the founders of Sierra Online are Ken and Roberta Williams. And there was a point in time on a Facebook page that we were interacting with them that they said, yeah, the third guy from Andromeda might have been Hal Finney. Okay. And who is Hal Finney? Everybody knows Hal Finney is the first guy to receive 10 Bitcoin from Satoshi Nakamoto. So now we're saying, okay, so and just to let everybody know, that post has been taken down. So it was
How
sent.
Finney
We
Space Quest post.
Yeah, that Hal Finney might have been the third, guy from Andromeda. That's been taken down. But of course, when I say the internet keeps receipts, we have screenshots. Okay, so we kept it. But now let's get into the Hal Finney piece. So Hal Finney, okay, like he was involved in I think 6 games. He has 6 games to his credit. So he was very involved, and then he was very involved in Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley is where all these people, it was kind of, I call it Peachtree dish, right? Like all the cypherpunks, all the internet pioneers, all the gamers, they all were matriculating. By day they're gamers and developing games, and by night they're talking about cryptocurrency, right? Because they were all starting to get involved in that space. And again, I say, who's the first person to receive 10 Bitcoin? But Hal
How
Finney. And so now we got to say to ourselves, okay, so now we've got a couple links here. We've got the number 59, right? We have Satoshi Osaka and Ron Nakamoto. We have their involvement. But now we got to start talking about Hal Finney, let him rest in peace. But we believe we don't have the smoking gun other than he might have been the third person involved. But when you look at some of, crypto, the cold storage wallet, we're going out on a limb here, but he's in cold storage, in Arizona at Alcor Life Extension. And he was actually the 128th person, right, to be cryogenically frozen. And of course, 28-bit, 128-bit encryption, all these divine interventions, that we see, with Hal Finney. And then also, when you look at Alcor, when we get into here, so let me back up. We never, when Buckazoids started out and we started doing the research, we never wanted to find out who Satoshi Nakamoto is. That was never our intention. We really could care less who Satoshi Nakamoto is. It was really us connecting the dots for the origin story of Bitcoin. Where did it come from? And that's where I've written many crypto Twitter posts about it. There's still a lot of people alive that were centrally involved in what I believe, if it weren't for at least a dozen people, we wouldn't have Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he or she is, the one thing we do know they're a there are a dozen different people, a dozen different highly intelligent people that if it weren't for each one of them, we wouldn't have Bitcoin today. And that's where like this goes back to 1973, where a guy named Clifford Cox, who worked for the Central Intelligence in the UK, and he was the first one to come with public key cryptography, so kind of the RSA equivalent. So that was back in 1973, but it didn't become declassified until 1997, right?
Oh,
So now we're going back, 6 years after the launch even of Space Quest. But where I'm going with this is, so if you start out with a gentleman named Clifford Cox, who comes up with public key cryptography, then in 1976, we have Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman, and they continue on that journey with their own public key cryptography, where they're making it even better. Okay, so now you have them, and it was revolutionary what they did. But now we start to go even further, and then you have David Chaum. Anybody in crypto knows David Chaum, right? Where he was the one who invented blind signatures. Then we go to Tim May, right? And he was the person who wrote the Crypto Manifesto, or the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto. So
wow.
Tim May is very heavily involved, in getting the juices flowing, if you will. And then John Gilmore, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, also another cypherpunk activist. He was heavily involved in terms of getting these creative juices flowing. And then in 1991, you have Phil Zimmerman, right? So he did pretty good privacy. And then he had Hal Finney help
GP.
him basically take what he had first developed and make it more ironclad, I'll say. So now you have Phil Zimmerman and you have Hal Finney. Now we go to 1991, also after Phil Zimmerman in the same year, we have Stuart Haber and it's Scott Stanetta. They were the ones that did chain of work. Okay, so for them, they were doing the chain of work and they're referenced in the white paper. So Satoshi specifically names Stuart Haber, Scott Sternetta, both still alive, and they work for Bellcore. So Bellcore was the R&D arm of the Bell operating phone companies. Okay, so you have them. Then oh yeah, go on, Guy.
Before we get too far away from Hal Finney,
Yep,
and the divine overlay, we'll just say cosmic coincidences to not
yep,
offend people that get triggered by the word religion or God and Bible or cosmic providences and stuff like that. But there's this cosmic coincidence that it just teases all of us. We know
yep,
a certain tweet. You'll answer the question for me that Hal Finney
yeah,
is famous for, right?
yeah. Wait,
Running.
say it again, Guy.
There's a famous tweet that Hal Finney, the first
Yeah,
recipient of a Bitcoin transaction, is famous for saying when it happened or once they got the network going, and is running Bitcoin.
yeah,
Correct? Hal
correct.
Finney?
Yeah,
I'll let you, just for the fun of the cosmic coincidence overlay with Buckazoids, that just, despite the history, despite the facts of the
yeah.
matter, the things that could only be from above, who does Buckazoids have? Tell it.
Wait. So who does Buckazoid?
Again,
Oh, are you talking about one of our members?
yeah. Our community, a guy just like you and I, who's on here every day promoting Buckazoids. We
Oh, you
have,
talking about Legless? Are you talking about Legless?
yes, we have a guy
Yeah,
running around in a t-shirt with our
yeah,
logo. He is a
yes,
one-legged man who daily runs a marathon with a shirt that says running Buckazoids. And that
correct.
would be such sacrilege to the Bitcoin maxi crowds, but we get away with it because it's true.
Correct.
We have a one-legged man who runs. Hopefully, Nick or can scroll. It's one of his reposts is kind of still on the high up on the X account, like the third or fourth down. But the overlay between Bitcoin and Buckazoids, historically, spiritually, purposefully, et cetera, et cetera. But there's just this divine design that just everybody, it
Yeah,
blows your mind the longer you get looking into it, is that we have our own running Buckazoids. This is not, I'm stealing your word, I think, Matt. Buckazoids, we are not a frog of a different color. We are
yeah,
not a dog of a different color. We are history. We are living
yes,
history. Look at you. We have our own running
yeah,
Buckazoids.
correct.
Your dog, your meme coin, whatever.
Yeah,
You can't make up anything as amazingly, realistically, proofs in the pudding. We are the real
yes,
deal.
correct.
Just to me, that's always blown my mind. We're only halfway through, I think. Yeah, we got 20
Yeah,
minutes easy for you
yeah.
to unpack more.
And here's the thing. The reason why I wanted to go through the chronological order of all the people that if it weren't for them, we would not have Bitcoin. But it also goes to show, like, let's not talk about who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Again, we want to unravel the origins of Bitcoin. And these are people that had nothing to do with Seer Online, right? So I want to go back to, like, how many people have heard of Stuart Haber and Scott Sternetta that are big Bitcoin maxis and purists? Probably 99% have not, right? But yet they were mentioned 5 times in the white paper. So Satoshi Nakamoto 5 times in the white paper mentions Stuart Haber and Scott Sternetta because it weren't for their time stamping to prevent
Wow.
tampering, right? We wouldn't have what we have today. So my point is, who cares who Satoshi Nakamoto is? We don't have this because now it goes further. There were 2 ladies at Bellcore. So now you got Stuart Haber and Scott Sternetta that worked at Bellcore. Now you have these 2 women, and they were the first ones to do proof of work. So before Adam Back, there was these 2 ladies, Cynthia Dwork and Moni Noir, Naor, and they were the first ones to come up with proof of work. Okay, so now you have that, and then we continue on and we go to other people that are involved, like Eric Hughes, another cypherpunk. And then we go to Adam Back, right, who Hashcash, he invents Hashcash, right, and
Good
then
man.
he elaborates on the proof of work, and Adam Back is also named. So we just have to remember there's all these people. We have We Die, right? So We Die is B Money. We have Nick Szabo, BitGold. And then we have Hal Finney again because he's the first person, right? So he does reusable proof of work. So a lot of people know Adam Back. A lot of people know Nick Szabo, We Die, David Cham, but they didn't know some of the others that I had mentioned. And so again, if you take these dozen people, that's why we have Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're very happy to say that. But now there's a lot that takes us back to Buckazoids, right? And why did Satoshi Nakamoto, who named all these, most of the people, didn't name all of them, but the people I had mentioned, mostly Adam Back, he named the folks from Belcore, but Hal Finney receives 10 Bitcoin, and Hal Finney came out of the gaming world. And we heard at one point, Hal Finney was the third guy from Andromeda. And we know that in the game, so now let's go back a little bit into the game, into Space Quest 4. We know that it's a time travel game. And in Space Quest 5, it actually was, that there is a dead person, and the police officer, well, I'm sorry, it was a dead police officer. Roger Wilco finds him, kind of pats him down, and he finds like a bubblegum wrapper. And what was in that bubblegum wrapper but a sequence of numbers? But it was missing, I think it was missing two numbers or something. He had to go to some library, found the other two numbers, and it was that sequence of numbers that allow him to go into a time capsule to then take him back in time. So we say that's our seed phrase, right? I mean, like, so now if you have a cold storage wallet, you need your seed phrase. So I believe that Mark Crow and Scott Murphy, the two guys from Andromeda, they weren't they weren't cryptographers, right? They didn't come up with that. Okay, so they were very smart, they were very witty, they had a wicked sense of humor. They had no idea about cryptography, had no idea about seed phrases, had no idea about prime numbers, but all these things are seeping into the game. And so that's why when somebody at that one point in time said, hey, Hal Finney was the third guy from Andromeda, it would stand to reason that he might have been involved, whether he didn't get gaming credits, right? He doesn't have any gaming credits, but it's just like right now, Guy and I and all the people in our community, we all speak to one another. We're all doing the research. We're on this YouTube video now. Like all of a sudden, like-minded people eventually get together, whether it's in person or online, and they share ideas. And we just think that these shared ideas, Hal Finney was probably part of it. And now if we want, we can go down yet another rabbit hole where even before Hal Finney, okay, but Hal Finney was a part of this, there there were groups of people that were called extropians and high-tech Hayekians. And this gets into, these were people that believed in high technology was going to push us, we're going to push people's human limits, where until such time that we could live forever. Like eventually technology could get us to a point where we could live forever, is a little bit long, but for hundreds of years, right? But until technology catches up to that point, that is why Hal Finney is cryogenically frozen. I mean, just like Mark Crow and Scott Murphy were wicked with their humor, Hal Finney was wicked smart. And so the high-tech Hayekians and the Extropians, sorry, they were in the 1980s in Silicon Valley. So these were a group of technologists, economists, and they were libertarians, and they were the ones that believed that until such time that technology can catch up to us, and they believed in decentralized systems, right, which is what Bitcoin is today. It's a decentralized system, that even their core insights were also bleeding into what Hal Finney believed. And by the way, Hal Finney, excuse me, he was part of the Extropian mailing list. So he was a cypherpunk mailing list. He was an Extropian mailing list. He was in the high-tech Hayekians, mailing list. And there's a name in there of a gentleman named Phil Salen. So now we're going to also come a little bit full circle. Phil Salen, he owned a rocket company. So Phil Salen also owned a rocket company. Okay, now get this. Let's go back to the beginning of our conversation. The number 59, Mark Crow's birthday, 59 prime number in cryptography. Add 5 and 9, 14 days, Bitcoin difficulty of mining. 5 minus 9, 4. 4 years is the halving. Phil Salen, an Extropian and high-tech Hayekian, is the 59th person to be cryogenically frozen at Alcor Labs. So again, another divine intervention. And then Hal Finney is 128. Yes.
Double 59 and you got
So
what you got.
So yes. So I mean a lot of this. Sorry, gotta get my drinks in. So now let's do this. So Phil Salen, he was the first person, like before there was an Amazon, before there was an eBay, before there was a PayPal. So Phil Salen is the founder of Amex. And that was a decentralized trading platform, way before anybody else. And this is where, let me see, it was, hold on, I wrote some notes down here. So, okay, so here it is. So when he built Amix, AMIX, okay, was 11 years before eBay. It was 16 years before Amazon. It was 31 years before Ethereum smart contracts. And so he did all this, right? So he was doing what eBay did 11 years before eBay. He was doing what Amazon did 16 years before Amazon. He was doing what Ethereum smart contracts did 31 years before the smart contract. So all I'm saying is these people that were heavily involved in cryptography, in life extension, because they didn't want to outlive their money. So they needed to figure out a way that they would not outlive their money if they were put in cryostasis. And Hal Finney was a part of all that. So for me, it's one of those things where we're tying things back we're going back, 30, 40, 50 years ago, where again, Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he or she is, it is an amalgamation of all the people that came before him or her. And there are ties that go back to Buckazoids, right? Because in the game, so what we forgot to say, and again, I'm sorry, everybody, this thing goes in a million directions, but the love interest, the love interest of Roger Wilco is Beatrice Winkmeister. Remember I told you they have a wicked sense of humor, Mark Crow and Scott Murphy. Yeah. So the love interest is Beatrice Winkmeister in a really tight blue suit. She had an illness that could not be cured, so she was put into a cryogenic state. So again, we know
at the end of the last game.
Yeah. And then she was brought back to life. But my point is that's where I really want to tie this back in some way, shape, and fashion to Hal Finney. And this is why, again, Mark Crow and Scott Murphy, wicked humor. Hal Finney, wickedly smart, was a cryptographer at heart, received the first 10 Bitcoin. Beatrice Winkmeister gets frozen. Okay. Hal Finney, Phil Salen, get cryogenically frozen. And then the significance of Phil Salen being the 59th person being cryogenically frozen, Hal Finney being the 128th. There's two. Wait, and then
the end of the game.
Yeah, I forgot in my list of people I stopped because there's so many. So, oh my God, Merkle, the Merkle tree. So Ralph Merkle. Sorry, so Ralph Merkle, who invented the Merkle tree. Without the Merkle tree, we don't get Bitcoin. Ralph Merkle sits on the board of directors at Alcor, where Hal Finney and Phil Salen are. Then, if people are familiar with, Bitcoin, there's Crypto Jesus. Okay, so Crypto Jesus, he was the one
Roger
that
Ver.
convinced Alcor to accept Bitcoin for donations. Okay, so Roger Ver is Crypto Jesus. If it weren't for Roger Ver, Crypto Jesus, he was the one that got Alcor Labs to accept Bitcoin as a donation. Okay, and
Worked
then
out well for him, like WikiLeaks, didn't it?
wait, say it again.
Worked out very well for
Yeah,
them,
it
apparently.
did. And then
Yeah.
everybody knows Coinbase, so you know Brian. Wait, it's Brian, right? Yeah. So he's the CEO of Coinbase, but there is a Brad, okay, and Brad donated the first $5 million to Alcor in Bitcoin, and he was like a person who had invested a lot in Bitcoin. So there, so look, I mean, everybody could do their own research. Alcor Life Extension Institute, there is a lot of crypto money and people in high crypto positions that were actually the president at Alcor at one time. They sit on the board of directors. So it also stands to reason that these people, right, and the connections that they had, we just really believe all of this was formed in Silicon Valley. And now let me go one last step further.
Right on.
And
5-minute mark.
Ken Williams and Roberta Williams, the owner of Sear Online, they have since sold it off many, many moons ago. They are now starting to do some remakes of the software from back in the 1980s and 90s. Their company is called Signet Solutions. Well, guess what? Back in the 1980s and the early 1990s, it was Signet Solutions where the cypherpunks held some of their meetings. Okay. And it was a company called Signet Solutions. So, and now you've got Ken and Roberta Williams. The name of their new company for some of their remakes is Signet. So, again,
Now retro.
it could be totally coincidental, but as we say,
No way.
how many coincidences
No way.
before we could say the facts are starting to add up? So,
yeah, I've run around that with Grok a few times. That you don't understand computer is the way the human mind works. Is the preponderance of coincidences becomes too mind-bogglingly to where you're even allowed to use the word coincidence anymore.
Correct.
Coded is what Buckazoids. I think right. So would you say if you had to like gun against your head up against a dark alley, is Buckazoids? What you unpacked here, it's so important because people have to understand we're not opinionated, slanting facts or to shill a coin. What impressed me as a writer coming to you guys, I had to do we've been a little open today, but I had to do some digging to get you guys to even talk about the coin. You were all about the history.
Yeah.
What tells the story is you have laid out such a convincing history that there's not a single Bitcoin maximalist out there that can say this guy Matt does not know what he's talking about. So with that history and the work you've done, you've got the proof of work.
Yep.
Do you think Buckazoids is kind of the origin space quest of Bitcoin?
So again,
yay or nay?
I go back to what I said early on that when you look at Rod Nakamoto and Satoshi Osaka, we don't have we forgot the most important thing. So, there's so many important things. So wait, what like time wise? So I totally forgot something that if you think Guy and I are trying to convince you, you haven't heard the most. It's not even crazy. It drives conspiracy theory, down a whole nother rabbit hole. But so where I'm going to go with this first is I just believe that Rod Nakamoto, Satoshi Osaka, those were names that are convincingly involved with Sear Online. No, did they help Mark Crow and Scott Murphy create Space Quest? No, but they were heavily involved. So whoever this Satoshi Nakamoto person is, and again, I referenced all the people that came before him or her that we wouldn't have Bitcoin without him. But this person, Satoshi Nakamoto, was definitely in the gaming world, right? They love games, maybe they were even a program developer that we just because they go by a different name, right? They go by Matt Blum. There's many people that think it's Adam Back. There's many people that think it's Nick Szabo. There's many people that think it's oh my god, what's his last name? Les. So Simon Dixon. He thinks it's
Dave.
No, it's less.
Notes.
He passed away too. Shoot. It'll come to me. Hold on. I
Okay.
threw some notes all around here, but
Don't worry about the time. No
yeah.
pressure between.
But yeah, so Simon Dixon believes it's less something. He passed away, but and so where I'm going with this, I wish I have too much stuff and I'm not where I need to be.
Okay.
But anyways, Les and Hal Finney were pretty close, and they were like when Hal Finney was helping Phil Zimmerman on PGP, Les, who's based in the UK, was also working on a PGP like software platform, and he and both he and Hal Finney definitely were interacting. They were both cypherpunks, as you know. So yeah, so he was heavily involved, but. So with all this stuff, everybody that I'm talking about, so now I do some more digging. Our community does more digging, and all of a sudden, young Sheldon. I'm not a fan of young. Yeah, I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
young Sheldon. But what's crazy about young Sheldon and everybody, look me up on my posts. There are 3 episodes in season 3, episodes 7 and 11. There is a Tandy computer screen in one of the episodes. There's 2, I think, Apple II computers. And on the computer screen, and this is where the internet has receipts, okay? Young Sheldon, season 3, episode 11, 7 and 11. Look me up, do the little search, and you'll find it. Okay, on the computer screen, Hal Finney's name is on there, Nick Szabo's name is on there, Space Quest is on there. So why do you have Space Quest on this computer? And by the way, it's in the background. Like you miss it. It's like a second and a half. It's not meant to really be seen. It's supposed to be subliminal because young Sheldon is on the computer and he's doing something. So it's a flash. Okay. But again, Hal Finney's name is up there, Nick Szabo's name is up there, and then Space Quest, and then Ross Ulbricht,
Got it.
and like all the names that are on there, it is absolute insanity that whoever worked in production for Young Sheldon, they know as much as we know, and they probably know more because when I got into high-tech Hayekians and Extropians, they've got names of some of those people on the screen that were libertarian economists. Okay,
I've
it
got it on
is,
my
and then yeah, and then they have some of the Grateful Dead guys because they were actually kind of in a way into cypherpunks. Yes, so right here. So you tell me, is the Buckazoids community crazy? The first name up there is Space Quest. Okay, then they got Nick Szabo, who some
The
people.
Lorry
Yep,
brothers, the people behind Big Bang Theory, who do all that OCD research to give you a 2
yep.
second screen at the end of Big Bang, produced this.
Yep. And this is one, right? There are 3 different screens, everyone. So and
Wow.
and they're a little bit different because Hal Finney's on this one too, but it might be a little bit lower. Maybe you have to raise it up. Because
It's
Hal
on
Finney
there.
is
It's
usually on.
above the word Young Sheldon. The last thing circled, number 154.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry everybody. I'm on my phone. So sorry. So yeah, I'm not seeing it. But yeah. So call us crazy, call the Buckazoids community crazy. Or does Hollywood know something that they even know more than we do? And just to let everybody know, I've tried to reach out. The person who was the set production designer is no longer living. So they passed away, and I'm trying to find someone else, like whoever wrote those or put those screens in, they knew something. So
Got it.
so that'll
Yeah,
just that'll just corroborate what we're trying to tell. This is the one where this has now been taken down.
correct.
Yes.
Hal Finney, Adam Back, Max Kaiser. Hey, Max, I got news for you. You think Bitcoin is God? I know who created your God. Bazinga! Sorry, that was a little loud. I'm in a fleet. I'm in a business location, and the Lorry brothers from Young Sheldon, creators of Big Bang. They know. They do not throw
Yeah.
random screenshots like that on their TV production show without knowing
No.
something. Dude, you have knocked it out of the park, Matt. anything else you want to say? Our time is okay because
Guys,
it so
guys,
happens.
can I jump in for 1 second?
Please,
Yes.
yeah.
Super
Nick.
super fascinating and interesting. But how do you guys look at people who say it's created by the NSA and the CIA?
Okay.
They
So
copied us. Go,
yeah.
Matt.
So here's the thing about the NSA. The NSA developed SHA-256, which is what Bitcoin uses today. It's the hashing algorithm that Bitcoin uses for security, for the proof of work. So why would Satoshi Nakamoto have done it? I mean, again, or is it the NSA that they want to have a back door into this conspiracy? It's a conspiracy that the NSA wants to have a back door into Bitcoin. There are people that say it's the Rothschilds, that they're the mastermind of this. My thing is, could that very well be it? Yes. But there still is. I would say, of all the thousands of hours of research I did, there's no smoking gun that the NSA were the creators. I would say it's more the financial world of the Rothschilds, the Chases of the world, like the big, what I'd call the cabals of finance. That maybe they're more involved in this. And what better way to get a cryptocurrency to be mistrusted by all, but if the dollar is going bye-bye, in the next 5 or 10 years, but make the villain be Bitcoin, but eventually the villain now becomes the savior, and people get into Bitcoin. So I don't know. Nick, I still haven't done enough research to lead me to believe that the NSA is behind this. I mean, I'm trying to think. Even Simon Dixon, who that guy's probably done 10 times the research I've even done and our community's done, and I don't think he believes the NSA is behind this either.
But you do believe that they are aware of this story that you're telling, that they know the identity of the people.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, call me now a conspiracist. I just think the Bitcoin maxis and purists, they don't like us because they don't want to take attention away from Bitcoin. We take attention away from Bitcoin. But my whole reason for wanting to get as much of this information out there, and again, forget Guy, forget Matt Blum, forget all the people in our community that have exposed all these different what I would call circumstantial evidence, over almost a year. Forget that. But all of a sudden, Hollywood, I mean, those 3 screens, and then also in Young Sheldon, there's an episode of Elon Musk, where he's talking about things. And this is why the more you talk, or the more we talk, the more comes out. Not only, remember the 59 on this coin? The guy who is Sheldon's brother, again, I don't watch the movie. This will just go to show you I'm pure research. I don't watch Young Sheldon, not interested in it. So Young Sheldon's brother, there are multiple. Oh, here, take off the volume of that.
My bad.
Yeah. Okay, there are multiple episodes in Young Sheldon where his brother is wearing a shirt with the number 59. Again, is that coincidence? Or is it the same person that built those computer screens, on a Tandy computer and an Apple II computer? Give me a break, everybody. I mean, it's not like he wears that shirt once or twice. There's probably well over a dozen times that his brother is wearing a kind of football jersey shirt with the number 59. Yeah. It's absolutely
blue and yellow.
crazy.
I've seen it.
And how about time travel?
Nick's question real quick.
Oh, sorry.
I want to give a plug for
Yep.
financemeetsfaith.com. The column I wrote addressing the NSA and 256. I simply made the statement. Oh, thanks, bro. I made the statement that the NSA's involvement in SHA-256 gives them no more control over the Bitcoin network than Benjamin Franklin has over all the world's electricity by steering his kite. Do I make myself clear?
Yeah.
That's my opinion. Short answer.
Yeah.
Just because, you played anybody Googles Bitcoin prehistory and you see the tree of 40, 50 years involved and the 40, 50 people, it's like the Bible. How could this many authors agree over this amount of time to produce one thing?
Yeah.
And it's okay. So the NSA, 256, CIA, they had this tiny piece of the puzzle. Like Matt said, there's over a dozen people that Bitcoin doesn't exist if you remove one of them from the timeline, so to speak. As far as us going over on time, Matt, we know Josh, man, and Roger Wilco, man.
Yeah.
We're okay on time. We are hooked up.
Yeah. It's
anything else you wanted to add, Nick? So we can.
No. I mean that's the fun thing about the game. You know, the game has super AI. It has time travel. It has UFOs. It has all. You know, the transhumanism that you're describing.
yes.
That's basically the world that we're now living in. So it's super fascinating.
Yeah.
And
there's more people. There's more people. And so Hal Finney's wife, you know, she set up when, you know, let her, God willing, let her live, you know, to a long life. But she set up to be cryogenically frozen, you know, along with her husband. But yeah, it's all I'm saying is the transhumanism allows for them to say to themselves, hey, right, money will outlive us unless we have money in a decentralized form and fashion to protect it for, you know, when technology improves enough to bring us back to life. So but it goes back to, if anybody got anything out of this, do not listen to Buckazoids. We don't know what we're talking about, but then you got to say to yourself again, all the stuff that we presented today is now presented in a Young Sheldon episode or multiple episodes in Young Sheldon. Again, look me up and research it. Do a search under, you know, at Mad Matty B. Look up Young Sheldon. You will see the timestamps. Go watch it today, and you will be shocked. Like, why did they put Space Quest, Hal Finney, Nick Szabo, Andreas Antonopoulos, not your keys, not your crypto. All these people were on the screen. It's absolute craziness. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so just go to me there, do a search for Young Sheldon, and then you'll be able to pick up all the episodes and see for yourself. It's just a whole lot of fun, but it goes back to where I believe that there is a history, that Buckazoids is the place and time that helped Satoshi Nakamoto probably remember. It's kind of like, you know, when you go back that long ago and you're thinking about, you know, Bitcoin is the name and what is your logo going to be? And he probably remembered that game or people that were involved in that game and liked the Bitcoin B logo. But in that game, remember, we're talking about a seed phrase. You know, we're talking about the love interest that was cryogenically frozen. Like, these are things that Hal Finney was, you know, heavily involved with. So it stands to reason that somehow, some way, there is that linkage. And one of these days, we're going to get that smoking gun. And all we want to do is, Bitcoin was a shitcoin that was 0.0003 at one time. We're 0.0004. And what we'd like to do is get into Buckazoids, right? When Buckazoids increases in value, we could be the on-ramp to get into Bitcoin, right? So it's not like we're against Bitcoin. It, like, how many people have the mental capacity to spend 70,000 on a Bitcoin? But guess what? You can spend, you know, $1,000 on Buckazoids, and all of a sudden, you know what? And Buckazoids increases in value. Again, not financial advice, but it becomes at a point in time.
What I've found is that Bitcoin maxis listening to this. I know you're highly offended at this conversation, and you should be, and I was as well. But what you're going through is called the 5 stages of denial right now. You're mad at first, but you're going to go down the rabbit hole. The truth is going to hit you. It's going to slap you across the face a couple times. If you will let us guide you, you can be done with the whole process in 24 hours. But what we have seen over and over and over again, because Matt, more so, I kind of walked away from the crypto community, the marketing and all that, the shitcoinery, the pump and dump of it all. And that's why Bitcoiners don't want to give attention to Bitcoin, or maxis don't want to give attention to this right now. But here's what's happened. Bitcoin maxi, yes or no? The more knowledge you have about Bitcoin, the more Bitcoin you purchase, yes or no? We all know the answer is yes to that question. Matt and I can give you testimony. I tweeted 5 people in a row one day last July or August after getting into this, that they were young kids They were all about crypto. They're degen gamblers. They thought Bitcoin was an old tech boomer, and they paid no attention to it. The minute they started learning about the origin of Bitcoin, they started DCAing into Buckazoids as well. I'm sorry, into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They would buy their little stake in Buckazoids, but their DCA, I'm not kidding you, 10 or 25 a week. I got degen crypto gamblers that are buying Bitcoin for the first time in their crypto degen gambling career because they learned the origin and they love it. And they know that Bitcoin is here to stay. Buckazoids is fun money. You got 10 or $100 or $1,000 to throw away. It's a shit coin. It could go to zero, and we all know that. Well, it's the history of Bitcoin down to legless Intima running Buckazoids for us.
Yeah.
My thesis, my belief is that the more people find out about it, number go up, not financial advice.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm in.
Well, and
as
it's fun. It's fun. You know, I mean, Buckazoids is. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Buckazoids is fun. You know, it started in a game. Like the Bitcoin maxis and purists, you know, sometimes they get crazy into the weeds of the technology. Normal people in TradFi, they don't care about the blockchain this and the block, you know, like the proof of work. I mean, they don't care about that. As it is, this discussion today, like I talked about things that even my eyes roll back because there's just so much stuff. And I'm like, oh, you know, I forgot about, you know,
once we get going.
Yeah, I forgot about young Sheldon, you know, and all the numerology. All like there's stuff like guys, I didn't even get into what the cypherpunks listen to and they watch, you know. So Neuromancer by William Gibson. So like that was a book most of these cypherpunks, you know, would read, and it gets all into, you know, transhumanism and everything. I mean, like, so there are books that these cypherpunks read. And again, it all bleeds into parts of the Space Quest game, why they did what they did. But at least we could say, hey, Buckazoids, it's a fun game. You know, this is where some of the historical beginnings, you know, of, you know, Buckazoids was recession riddled, you know, I mean, it was, you know, inflation, deflation.
The longer you hold your Buckazoids throughout the time travel game, the more valuable they are. Is that foreshadowing Bitcoin or what? The longer you hold your Buckazoids, the better off you are. That is how the game started. Telegram's going fun. I thought it was funny that what I love to, or what I'm discovering is a little bit of a struggle for me. But to my Bitcoin maxi friends who are Christians, and you know who you are, here's my struggle that I want to present to you. We have uncovered that the origin of this thing that we've written books about, thank God for Bitcoin, the Bitcoin and the Bible, or let me get it right here. Pastor Allen, the Bible and Bitcoin, folks. There's conferences celebrating conservative Christians who are Bitcoin maximalists. And I'm here to tell you what I've discovered, and I want to pitch to you guys. We've uncovered that the origin of Bitcoin was men who wanted to live forever, or transhumanism. They wanted to cheat death. They wanted to rise from the dead on their own power, and they wanted to be rich AF when they did so. So they wanted to transplant their souls, their minds, their memories, and their money. And guys, I'm a little bit of loss. I'm deep in this, and I love it. I'm not going anywhere. This is my family. This is my community. And I'm a Buckazoid as much as I'm a Bitcoiner. But those of us that love Bitcoin and advocate for the Christian merit of it, perfect money, it obeys God's laws more than anything else. Its origin is transhumanism and mankind wanting to live forever and reach for the stars.
I think Bitcoin,
Isn't that wild?
Bitcoin also.
Isn't that wild?
It's
All
super
these
cool.
things that come together.
What were you saying, Nick?
Bitcoin, I think, also solves the AI alignment problem, right? Because we're going through this great filter, you know, where things could go horribly wrong. And I think Bitcoin came at exactly the right time, and it will help us navigate this AI revolution. You would need something like Bitcoin to make it all work. So, yeah, I like the story. There are much worse origin stories. This one is fun. It's you know, game.
Thanks for staying late, Nick.
Well, yeah.
Tell us about Bitcoin
this
Live.
one's fun, and there are a lot of people that know a lot more about this. That this, for whatever reason, they can't remember things, or they just don't want to remember things. Because the one thing I'll also tell everybody, and we can end this, Nick, is I reached out to the person who's a PhD professor at UCLA. So he was the technical advisor for young Sheldon. So on all their, because he's was a aerospace engineer. And I reached out to him and he responded to me and he said, Matt, those computer screens were blank. So when I was advising them, the computer screens that have Space Quest, Health Any, he goes, those were blank. He was the one that told me reach out to the product design or the the design manager or whatever, with the production design set engineer. But then I found out he had passed away. So there are people that know. Some have passed away. I talked to some people at Sarah Online, but it's been so many years they don't remember some things. Some they remember some things, but not others. So we will get to the bottom of this. But I will tell you this: that there is a place in time that Buckazoids existed, and it was helping unravel the origin of Bitcoin. So
Cool.
And what I'll say as far as any Bitcoin Max, thank you for staying late, Nick. Over in Europe, Bitcoin Live, but hosts many other Bitcoin programs. You guys, the bigger picture, you and Sid, where I was on last week, you dig the paranormal aspects of it. Thank you for making room for this. To the Bitcoin Maxis out there, of which I used to be one, I'm going to say this. Matt, you hit it on the head. Buckazoids is fun. It's a community of people. Nick, we could have a dozen other people that could go on and do another hour program each. The rabbit hole is that big, and the strings being pulled together. What I say is we're coming up to the Bitcoin conference. As many of us are going to meet face to face at the Bitcoin conference in just a few weeks. But what I'll say to the Bitcoin maximalists who are at least looking at Buckazoids is, I'm not going to lie to you, is that eating steaks, lifting weights, and sunning my balls is the life for me, but it's lonely. Buckazoids is community and it's fun. I'm going to be hugging people and high-fiving them in person. And Matt and there's a handful of us that we know we're in this for life because it is truth. It is probably the true history of all Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. When I first came into this, someone said it's the greatest story ever told. That was said in X or in those spaces we were doing. And I had to, it is the second greatest story ever told compared to the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I'm going to help you tell it. So Matt and I and the handful that you're going to see in, I've stated that we are going to wind up hugging one another's widows one day. We are lifers. This is not a pump and dump scheme from the crypto aspect of it, but the rabbit hole is deep. The story needs to be told. The truth needs to be told, because the more you know about Bitcoin, the more you buy.
I got some Buckazoids since I got to know you, so I don't have a lot. But,
rock on!
I bought some.
Rock on!
So yeah, thank you guys.
Matt, close us out.
Wait, say that again, guy.
We're going to do this weekly
Yeah.
On Bitcoin Live Network. The program it's easy to mix these up in your head because of phonics. financemeetsfaith.com. We'll have a one-pager there. You can sign up for a mailing list, both of program notifications as well as how to buy Bitcoin, for the record. And eventually, this one happens to be signed by Senator Cynthia Lumph and half a dozen others that I met last year at the conference. But anyway, and I'm also publishing Supernatural, for the record, my other 21 columns that I wrote about faith. I just wanted to mention that the program notes in the future, it'll be about one of those topics. We maybe do all Bitcoin, or maybe do all supernatural gifts of the Spirit, for all I know. It could be topics, but we're going to default to Bitcoin and maybe biblical stuff. And I'm in Roswell, New Mexico. You can come by anytime, not anytime, but visit theplaza.com. Visit theplaza.com, a little jankety one-page website that is the flea market booth. They don't like me to say flea market. A wonderful little strip mall that has mom and pop vendors, including myself. And Matt, on the Buckazoids topic, just close us out. Anything else, take a minute if you want to unwind.
So I found my other Android phone. So Simon Dick, a lot of people know who Simon Dixon is. So he thinks Len Sassaman. So Sassaman. So I've seen that floating around. I haven't done a lot of research on Len Sassaman, but Simon Dixon, he thinks not the NSA, but Len Sassaman, and he's now deceased. Has been for a long time. So that's my closeout. That's who the person was that Simon Dixon thinks it is. again, the Buckazoids community, we do not care. All we're trying to do is connect some dots about, we believe, Buckazoids. We're unearthing the origins of Bitcoin that we believe parts of it originate with Buckazoids. So, follow us, follow Nick, Bitcoin Live. We'll be around here a lot more often. And we can like drill into like little bits and pieces of this because there's a lot of breadcrumbs, but don't believe us, do your own research. And there's a lot out there now. Pick your AI engine. But don't trust, always verify. I come from the cybersecurity world. So, I'm always one not to believe in anything before I like in triplicate or quadruplicate verify it. So all the information I provided today was quadruplicated, amongst myself and other community members. So it's a fun ride, right? So take the rabbit hole ride with us. So
yeah, and we'll link on everything underneath the YouTube video for the people who want to.
Okay, and we don't have theme music to close out, but Matt and I, we got this. Okay, on closing, 3, 2, 1, dee dee dee. Dee 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 dee. Come on, Matt, sing it. You know the. Dee, dee, dee,
I was enjoying listening to you and
Space Quest.
Space Quest.
Come on. Whenever I post on Facebook anything to do with Buckazoids, I can add the music from the opening theme of Space Quest, so I know it well. God bless. Thanks, you guys.
Nick, hey, I really appreciate it. Sorry for all the mix-up on timing, everybody who's watching this, but at least now everybody can review it at their own leisure. So
the daylight.
No more blundering through time, Robert. No more blundering through time.
Hey, everybody, take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday wherever in the world you're watching.
Take care.
Take care.